Morning, welcome to the breakfast meeting here on NBS television. My name is Isabella. On Monday, we're having a conversation pertaining to oil and mining, the possibilities as to how Uganda first started its exploration. There are stories that say we started as far back as the 1920s, but commercial discoveries did not take place until 2006. Now, there is other books that also stipulate that it could have happened between the 1980s all the way until the 2000s. Our conversation this morning, however, is pertaining to the development phase of the oil and gas project, in which 15 to 20 billion US dollars will be invested within a period of 3 to 5 years. So what opportunities lie therein for the people and businesses here in Uganda? And of course, what does this mean for the oil, gas and mining sector? Joining me this morning to have a broader conversation is Betty Namubiru, the Manager National Content at the Petroleum Authority of Uganda, and Michael Muhangi, Oil and Gas Sector Head from Stanbic Bank. Good morning, Michael. How are you today?
Fine, thank you.
Hello, Betty.
Hello.
How are you today?
Fine, thank you.
All right, so I'll start with you looking at the sectors and activities. In what sectors and activities will this investment predominantly be in? And of course, who are the main players investing in it?
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you, our viewers. I think it's always important for us to bring up to speed the viewers on where we are in the sector, and I'll very briefly highlight some of these aspects. Where we are in the sector, I can say we can categorize into four. We have the development of the fields that gave us the 6 billion barrels of oil, and these developments are going to cost up to $9 billion US dollars. And the developments have, since where we are, we've had to incur 3.5 billion US dollars. The second aspect that we look at in the sector is the development of the refinery. The refinery is going to cost up to 4 billion US dollars. The third aspect is the construction of the crude export pipeline from Hoima, Kabale up to Tanga, and this is going to cost about 3.55 billion US dollars. The other aspects are the new explorations that we are seeing in the sector. We have new companies that have come on board to continue the exploration efforts, but we also have some 5 blocks that are up for grabs by the potential investors. So all this put together compounds the 15 to 20 billion US dollars that we are looking at. So in terms of investments, we think this is a huge opportunity for Ugandans. Looking at the projects that have been in this country, this is going to be the biggest project that this country has had. There are enormous opportunities in different sectors. If you look at engineering and construction, we have a lot of work that we are going to do in terms of infrastructure development to get the oil out of the ground, and that will require engineering and construction services. We are looking at sectors like environment. As we all know, the oil and gas discoveries are in fragile ecosystems, so we have to do a lot of environmental studies. We have lots of aspects to do with the transportation and logistics. A lot of equipment, up to over 4 million tons of equipment, is going to come into this country to support these investments. So we will have transportation, other aspects like supply of food for the people that are going to be working in the sector. So that makes the agriculture sector vibrant on the other side, medical services, the tourism industry itself. So these all put together contribute to the investments that we are looking at. And for Ugandans that are out there that would be interested in some of these services, this is the whole range of opportunities, ranging from the very basic services to the hardcore, the technical, high-end requirements in the sector.
All right, so before we delve into the kind of people that the industry will employ while at its peak and the particular services you're looking forward to, Michael, would you like to supplement on that?
Yeah, sure. On top of what Betty has just mentioned, first I'd like to thank you for having us here. Thanks for having us here to have this opportunity to speak about the industry. When we think about the main players in the industry, we think about the value chain. And the value chain, you can picture it as a pyramid. And just like Betty mentioned, there are a lot of services that fall within that pyramid. So at the top of the pyramid, you have the international oil companies. So that would be Total and Sinopec. And then following that, we have the tier 1 contractors. So those would be the likes of the EPCs, that's engineering, procurement, and construction. as well as the oil field service companies. That's the likes of Halliburton, Baker Hughes.
Sure.
So all the services that Betty mentioned fall at the bottom of this pyramid. So everything from engineering, construction, real estate, hospitality, food provision, security. So I think it's the main message here is to just sensitize the public and the Ugandan companies that the opportunities are massive and across sectors. And this value chain that we're speaking of, this pyramid, it's extremely extensive, and it will employ hundreds of thousands of people and several businesses. So that's the main point about the value chain.
All right. Betty, when he talks about the value chain and the people therein, how many people will the industry employ when it gets to its peak? And are you looking for particular services for one to get into oil and gas?
Okay. What we've done together with Ministry of Energy, what government has done is to undertake various studies for us to establish exactly the number of people, but also the different skill sets. So we, as a result of these studies, at least we can confidently say that at the peak of these projects during development and construction, we will need up to 160,000 people. But also very key to note here is that 70% of these people will be at technician level, speaking about diploma holders and certificate holders. So this is the total number of people that we'll need. And going down into the detail to know in which specific fields, having mentioned that 70% will be technicians, you will see that the skills that are required cut across the different levels, beginning from level 1, what we classify as the basic skills or the entry skills, up to level 4, where we have the managers, the professionals. And what we need here and what everyone needs to know is that there are probably less than 30% of the people required in this industry that will have petroleum-specific training. Majority of the people will be the usual technicians, the mechanics, the electricians, the welders, heavy goods vehicle drivers, even the ordinary drivers, only that there is some specialized training that is required. The welders we have today will need to upskill to get the certain kind of certification to be able to work in this industry. But very specifically to your question, the skills range from the very basic, the casual laborers that will be needed to support these construction facilities, the welders, the machine operators, electricians. Then at a higher level, we'll need engineers, civil structure, mechanical, and all those fields. So it is just like any other sector. There is a bit about the professional specific, that is petroleum, but it doesn't rule out the fact that we'll need the rest of the professions, including lawyers, accountants, communication specialists like you. So it takes across the whole range. But maybe to note that at the peak, we'll need 160,000. And when you look at the oil and gas sector globally, at a certain point, the number of people goes down. So it's important, and we emphasize that the skills we acquire are transferable. One should be able to work in the oil and gas sector, but also work in another sector. Yeah.
I'm considering the focus on local content. What services can adequately be provided by local companies? And in your opinion, do you think there are gaps there?
On the aspect of local content, looking at the companies themselves, I think it begins from the law. The studies I talked about, they informed the formulation of the laws and the regulations regarding national content or local content for that matter. And the regulations provide a list of 16 services that have been specifically reserved for Ugandans, having understood that that capacity is available in the country. So that is where the country first put its effort, defining which activities, even when investors come in the country, at least services to do with transportation, civil works, security, manpower supply, food supply, office stationery, and going down up to aspects of waste management. Those are services that are reserved for Ugandans. But on the other hand, over time, we have seen Ugandan companies moving from those services, which one might call basic. They have formed joint ventures, and they are now looking into other services like the geophysical studies, the geological studies. They are going into aspects of engineering designs, the definition of the engineering, the complex engineering services. You know, there are aspects to do with land acquisition that require one to have IFC standards, so they are working into collaboration. So we believe that with time, we'll be able to move from the services that the companies are offering now to the next level. And to support these efforts, the Petroleum Authority of Uganda established the National Supplier Database. This is an online system. It can be accessed from the PAU website. Oftentimes we do campaigns in the Albertine Graben where people do not have easy access, and we support that registration. So it helps create the visibility, because investors come from wherever to invest here, but this database, we believe, is a one-stop center that provides the visibility of the companies in the different categories. We have the same for the people. That is the National Oil and Gas Talent Register that also provides visibility for people to be able to know that, well, if I want maybe professionals, if I want welders, this is where we can get them from. So I encourage the companies out there that would like to take opportunity in the oil and gas sector to first of all register on the National Supplier Database, because it's a requirement. Coming to some of the challenges that we see, the oil and gas sector is international business. And international business has kind of unique requirements. You have to be internationally accredited up to a certain level, because we know that the sector has some sensitivity around safety and what have you. So the investor would want to have that confidence. So the challenge that we have is the aspect of acquisition of these standards and the certification, so that they can be able to be competitive in the industry. So that has been a big challenge, but through the National Supplier Database, we are encouraging joint ventures between the Ugandan companies and the global suppliers that have had the experience, and we have seen this going on over time. The other aspect would be on financing, but my colleague here will speak about the monies and the packages that they have put in place to support, and we address this challenge. So those are the major issues. On the aspect of skills, again, you realize that this is a new sector. The universities, the training institutions are only trying to take up these new requirements and training to meet the demand of the industry. So it's going to be a gradual process. A lot of effort is being put in. There is a lot of effort coming from the private sector players. Different donor agencies are supporting different programs, but it's going to take a gradual process. Yeah.
And I think one of the important things to note here is, on top of the 16 services that were ring-fenced to be done by Ugandans, where the Petroleum Authority thought that capacity was adequate, another thing that they've done quite well, at least in our opinion, is insist that there is some sort of skills transfer for the services that maybe the capacity isn't where it should be. So when the international companies come into the country and they partner with Ugandan companies, they are mandated to transfer those skills onto the Ugandan companies, so that over time, the Ugandan companies acquire those skills. Because the end goal is to have these Ugandan businesses integrated into a regional supply chain. We want to see Ugandan businesses doing oil and gas work in Kenya, in Tanzania, in Mozambique. So that's the end goal, and that's something I think the Petroleum Authority has done well. And us, as Stanbic Bank, it's something that we like to see, because it really de-risks the transaction. It de-risks the entire project if we can have very competent, skilled international companies transferring their skills to Ugandan companies, and that the overall framework now for performance becomes much better.
Right. What should local players and people do in preparation for the demand, to meet the demand? What should they do?
Okay, I think I talked about it earlier as a beginning point. The industry requires that the regulations, we have laws and regulations that require that for any company, whether local or foreign, to supply the oil and gas industry, they must be registered on the National Supplier Database. So as a beginning point, even before you look into anything else, every company should ensure that they are registered on the National Supplier Database, because this is where you have to, you need to indicate that as a company you're willing to work in the sector. Then the next aspect is to undertake research at the company level, not the complicated research, but invest in understanding the requirements of the sector in the specific area that you provide. If engineering, logistics, environment management, there is need to understand beyond the normal engineering works that you do in the country, in other projects, what is that specific requirement for the oil and gas sector. That can be done at company level. Then the next level is to look into identifying the partners to work with, so that you can leverage on the technical capacity, but also be able to meet the financing kind of challenges, because this sector requires a lot of capital, as many of us know. So being able to identify the right partners, the platform, the National Supplier Database registers both the local and the foreign companies. So one is able to know, I'm in this area, I'm in food supplies, or I'm in catering, I'm in maintenance of, I don't know, any facility. So going on the system, we do publish this list. One can be able to identify the companies that work with them, and then they talk and have the collaborations. We believe the collaborations will help because there is knowledge transfer in the process. Being able to bid together can help us to pull all the technical skills that are required. So for me, I believe those are some of the measures. Then as PAU and as most of our partners like Stanbic Bank, the incubator, Chamber of Mines and Petroleum, we do a lot of information dissemination. There are stakeholder engagements. I think the calendars were known in the year, save for COVID that has turned around things, but at least we knew the critical dates when Chamber of Mines does which conference. So these help disseminate information to know where the sector is. And in Petroleum Authority of Uganda, we also publish the upcoming procurements. So the companies can be able to know that in this year, Total E&P is going to do this, Sinok Uganda Limited will do this, Talo is going to do this. So all these are avenues and opportunities that will support preparation. Yes.
Thank you so much, Betty.
And Betty mentioned the Stanbic Incubator, which we started, I think, predominantly to address the challenges that we think SMEs will face in the oil and gas industry going forward. So just as she mentioned, I think one of our main goals was to help the SMEs identify and acquire the relevant standards and certifications to be able to supply the industry. The second thing was to really improve on the corporate governance of companies, and this helps them in so many areas. It also helps them with financing, because their credit, the way we perceive them is improved when their governance, the corporate governance is better. And then we also wanted to give the SMEs a place where they could meet other companies, right? So build networks that could help them form joint ventures, address capacity challenges in that way. Because if you have 3 companies doing civil works and they can all get together, then maybe they can bid for the big contract from Total E&P. And maybe lastly is the continuity factor. So what we wanted to do, we wanted to provide coaching and mentoring at the business incubator to be able to monitor and help these companies over a long period of time. So make sure that the gains that they have through the program at the Stanbic Incubator continue forward. So that was the goal, and I think it's something we've done successfully.
All right. Well, it was really nice having both of you coming to help us understand the demand side in the oil sector. But before I let you go, it's always a norm for me, if I have guests, I let you tell the viewers what you want for them to take from the conversation we had this morning. So I'll start with you, Betty.
Okay. Thank you very much. If anything has to be picked from this discussion today, I want to focus our energies on the level and the magnitude of the opportunity. $20 billion spent in this country. During exploration, we spent about 3.5 billion. And over 3.5 trillion Uganda shillings was retained in the country through supply of goods and services, through employment and all those aspects. So if we are able to retain 3 trillion, the 20 billion is in our hands. It is up to us as enterprises to prepare and seize this opportunity. This is a golden opportunity that we need to pick, and the time is now. Let us not wait for when the oil will drop, because then we'll have lost all the opportunities. All we have to focus on now is how do we get into these services? How do we position ourselves to get these opportunities? So that is my main message to all Ugandans, both in terms of the suppliers, but also the individuals that are desirous to work in these sectors.
Thank you so much.
My message to Ugandan businesses would be, first and foremost, to find out all you can about the oil and gas project. Just as Betty has mentioned, $20 billion represents nearly 2/3 of Uganda's GDP. So it is a massive, massive opportunity. So step one is to find out all you can about the opportunity, find out which services have been ring-fenced to be done by Ugandans, because that's low-hanging fruit, and then find out what are the standards and certifications to be able to provide those services. And you make sure that you find ways to get those qualifications, get those standards, and then very important is to set up relationships with financial institutions to be able to acquire those instruments that are necessary by the employers, Total, CNOC, and everyone who will be giving out contracts. And then also ensure that hygiene is good, good governance, books are kept well, you're compliant with URA, UNBS, and every statutory body. I think those will be the main things that will prepare you to be able to take advantage of the opportunity.
All right, thank you so much, Michael. Thank you so much, Betty. We do appreciate you for being part of this first session of the breakfast meeting. Just in case you were able to catch it, please be sure to go onto our YouTube channel at Next Media Uganda, and you can find this content there for you. We are continuing with 90 days of oil and mining from the 26th of August all the way until the 26th of November. 160,000 jobs. Is that very good?
Yeah, sure.
Waiting for all Ugandans. So please partake into this process, listen in, and see how best you, as an ordinary Ugandan, can benefit from the oil and mining sector. I am Isabella Tugume. I have another session. Come catch up. Thank you.